Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, die-in time is here. That's right, we're talking about Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street and the last 4 years of our podcast on Kill by Kill. Well, greetings and salutations, Internet. It's your old pal, Patrick Hamilton, coming to you once again from Camp Crystal Lake and 1428 Elm Street. This is the Kill by Kill podcast, where usually we talk about horror movie characters, but as we approach the end of our journey with Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street, we decided it was time to kind of reflect a little bit about what we've learned, what we've seen, what we've heard, what we felt splash against our face from these two very visceral horror franchises. And as always, there's only one person that I trust that if it's a special occasion for me, she will organize a large group of young adults who don't really know one another, but are sexy enough to get it on, to come help celebrate so they can be knocked off one at a time. The one, the only, Gena Radcliffe. How are you doing today, Gena?
I'm good. Everybody's standing around sort of sniping at each other and or, making sex eyes or sniping at each other while making sex eyes. And everybody's wondering, where's Patrick? It's Patrick's birthday party. Where is he?
I wandered off into the woods to see that one person that I was kind of attracted to, but I can't remember the name of. And then my earring dropped in the forest and I had to look for it. And then this guy came out of nowhere. And oh my God, I'm going to die, Gena. What am I going to do next?
Well, at least you had your sexy mall chick makeover before you went.
Yeah, touch up this. Touch up this. Oh my God. Friday the 13th, part 7. What a motion picture. I may be the last one who's a fan of it.
Yeah, I was talking about a writing assignment that both of us will be having at some point later this month. So folks will keep you in touch with that. Mm-hmm. I said, Patrick likes part 7 considerably more than I do. And she sent me a little shocked emoji face. I'm like, we don't agree on everything. That would be weird.
Yeah, I probably because it's like, I don't know, seminal to the time, or I just like telekinesis. I think it comes down to like a general love of telekinesis that elevates it for me. And I love that Jason design. That Jason design is fucking awesome. The movie is kind of a mishmash of.
Well, I feel like that part 6 has definitely, since we started on this grand experiment, that part 6 got a lot better in my estimation than I remembered it being. Mm-hmm. Part 7, I don't hate it, but it wasn't as good as I remembered it being. Right. And I think a lot of it, what really kind of got in the way of me is just, the idea of these people being forced together to have a birthday party.
But at least they give an excuse.
The only thing is they have in common is that they know this one guy.
Yes, they tangentially know this gentleman who never shows up to the party, but at least this one goes through the, bare minimum of giving an excuse for all of them gathering in one locale, which is why it then allows them to have this more diverse group of people who might not know each other at all. Some people have internal drama, some people have none, and the mix and match of that sort of works. Listen, again, like top half of the franchise for me. That doesn't mean number 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. It might be number 6.
I would agree that it's definitely, if you were to say like, you could watch part 7 again, or you could watch 8 and then Jason X. I'm like, oh, give me 7 twice.
Yeah. Yes, you're guaranteed more of a good time,
and it's a lot more entertaining than by far than the reboot is.
Yes. Oh no, okay. I would put them in the same stratosphere because I think there's enough of the milieu of the Friday the 13th franchise in that remake. And it's a little bit breezier. And while I'm not in love with how it accomplishes something, I think there's a certain joy to that weird, we're going to replicate 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the same movie, especially with that weird cold open structure it has. That cold open, I still think, works really well as a unit unto itself.
Yeah, if the whole movie had kind of had that sort of tone, I think I would have liked it a lot better.
Yeah, I can totally see that. And the other thing it does well that I have to give it credit for is it does provide actual characters. There are performers coming into that with a point of view. My character is like this. My character is like that. My character reacts to people in this fashion, and people make choices. And I would much rather have a film where people make choices than just show up with a haircut for the minutes required before you're hacked to pieces.
Just gonna say, just standing around waiting to die.
Yes, it is a throwback to me of the elements that I like in the movies that I like more. There are stronger characters in 6, there are stronger characters in 4, there are stronger characters in 2, and there are stronger characters in 1. And 3, I will put it into it's more confusing there. I rewatched it a little bit during a recent lockdown watch along. I think they were streaming it on Shudder, and so I was kind of watching along while I was doing other things. And that movie's breezy when you just watch it go by. and I still love that third act. It's still a hell of a third act, but the characters aren't as strong. To me, that's where 3 gets knocked down, whereas I still love the third act of it all.
Well, I think also 3 is when they really kind of dug into the archetype, characterizations of a lot of slasher movies.
Sure.
Here we've got the guy who always plays jokes, and then he ends up being sort of like, the boy who cried wolf. And you got the nice girl, you get the kind of slutty girl, and you got the good looking guy, you've got it's like they're very much fitting a certain type of role.
Yes.
And that was the point that and they backed away from this a little bit in 4, but that sort of, these people will watch any old garbage we put out. Cynicism starts to set in.
Yes.
And they don't have to try as much.
Well, and I think some of that is the distraction of trying to make the 3D of it all work. That's why it's overlit. That's why the characters don't move very much, because if you move at all, the camera becomes unfocused. So it's stagnant in that way up until the third act. And I think they poured the vast majority of their technical prowess into making that work. And it pays off for them when it comes to that section of the movie. But it also detracts from everyone else who, as you said, falls into an archetype. I'm a guy who likes to smoke pot. So, of course, I don't wear shoes. I don't wear shoes into the fucking outhouse. I don't wear shoes in the basement that is flooded. Holy fuck. What is happening here? You wear some fucking shoes. You're out of doors, man.
I'm just thinking about just the hand holding the joint that comes out of the camera. It's such a great shot. The yo-yo.
Yeah. As far as that that era 3D films, and we have that episode, and people who might have missed it, you might want to go back, but it has a lot of that.
Roughly 800 years ago.
Yes, it certainly feels like that in real people time. It has a lot of poking at you. And as a result of that, sort of, we have to make the 3D of this pay off. The equation then gets lessened for the other components, like characters, like plot, like story. Those don't work out quite as well. That's not to say that it can't be more than the sum of its parts.
But that was also a problem with 3D movies,
sure.
both of the 50s and then the thankfully brief revival of the 80s. If you're largely familiar with 3D, modern 3D, and even that's kind of on its way out, it's mostly used to kind of flesh out backgrounds.
It's
and make them seem more dimensional, as the word means. You very rarely, that's why most of them are in cartoons, superhero movies. You don't have like someone, just thrusting something towards the camera.
Yeah.
But when it was a trend in the 50s and the 80s, that was the primary thing. It's like, look how amazing this is. We're sticking a pitchfork at you. Look, that's horrifying. And then it's like, well, we just need to, create an hour and a half of movie to kind of pull all these scenes of, monster hands and floating severed arms and just stuff like that. That's all we need to do. It's like almost like a Broadway musical. This plot is just holding the songs together. That's second to what the people came to see.
Yeah, it's the basket for the fruit. Like the fruit's the show, but these other things that would normally be in the basket now become the basket. Yeah, it's weird. So here's a question for you that let's bring A Nightmare on Elm Street into this. Which is the more successful use of 3D in your mind? Friday the 13th 3D or the 3D sequence that's in Freddy's Dead, where she puts on the glasses to fight Freddy?
Good Lord, Friday the 13th. I mean, come on. I mean, I when I rewatched it, when we did Freddy's Dead, I was like, is this the part that they did? Oh, right, yeah, okay. Because I remember seeing it in the theater, and so clearly I must have seen it, the 3D sequence. And I was like, oh, right, this is the part they did in 3D for some reason. And it's just like, it was nothing. It was absolutely useless. It probably added like an extra $1 million to their budget.
Yeah, I suppose it's that thing where you want to goose up a struggling franchise, and you figure the best way to do that isn't to make it better necessarily, but to give it something that the other girls don't have. And 3D is, I think, a common gimmick to reach out for.
I mean, perhaps if the entire movie had been 3D, then maybe it would have been a little better. But overall, yeah, no. I mean, at least Friday 13th Part 3 was committed to the bit.
I think that it actually would have benefited from that because there's a lot of the cartoony Looney Tunes thing that we sort of
like derided. The scene where the guy falls out of the plane. That would have been great if they had done that in 3D.
Absolutely. I think that would have really helped elevate it, and hopefully they would have been able to have more camera movement. I mean, the technology had obviously advanced in the decade between the two filming times, so one would think that it would sort of make it pop a little bit more, and then you wouldn't have to have the very contrived, now hold on to these 3D glasses, this is how you enter the dream world, as opposed to like fucking falling asleep and dreaming like we've always done. Okay, sure. Why?
Yeah, and again, it's something. Well, this was never a thing before. We've seen several characters, who enter the dream world, and they never had to put on special glasses.
I think that's one of the things that was a bigger revelation to me this time than the previous time that I had watched the franchise, is that we often think of Freddy as having hard and fast rules when in point of fact, no one knows how Freddy works, and no one ever decided to really commit it to a bit. Freddy works however you need it to work in the moment, and that includes the Wes Craven original.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, that's fair.
I mean, because that end sequence where she pulls Freddy out, and that part is great, where he's getting sledgehammered, and there's all these improvised little things that are kicking his ass. That part really, really works because, okay, you could avoid this in the dream realm, but now we're playing by reality rules. Up until the point he gets lit on fire and starts walking around the house and saunters upstairs and begins choking out Nancy's mom in bed, just nonplussed by the whole being on fire bit. And you're kind of like, well, if being on fire doesn't bother him now, why did it bother him before? Why would the sledgehammer thing work? How does she get lowered into a phantasm pit? So, I mean, ultimately, it only works if you have Wes Craven behind the camera to stop you thinking about how kind of dumb this might be.
Well, I mean, that's the problem. When you think about any of these movies for too long, it occurs to you, but it's just really dumb.
True, but I also feel like for a lot of things that, and we now live in this, a lot of the ways in which one can die or what leads to your death is inherently fucking stupid.
Well,
and that is
true.
life's great joke. And we wouldn't be the first to say that this is the reason why, people seek out horror films to begin with, but it certainly underlines the point. But the sort of rejoinder that you often hear from various media critics and so forth over the years is that a horror movie only works if it's got rules. And for a lot of times I would wholeheartedly agree with you if only there was ever a film that actually stuck to those rules. And I don't think there's a single one that does. So is it a rule? I mean, is that something that really leads to a horror film success? I kind of shrug emoji at the entire concept.
Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of horror movies, even the truly great ones, you think if you think too long, the words, "Hey, wait a minute," will definitely pop into your mind.
Sure.
Like one thing that's always bothered me, as much as I love American Werewolf in London, it's almost certainly my favorite horror movie. I love it so much. It's probably the first horror movie I watched as a kid where I was like, well, this is it for me. I'm sold for life. I am a horror fan. Mm-hmm. But I never really understood why they did away with the whole aspect of, it's a full moon that requires the person to turn into a werewolf. And it's just, anytime it's the moon's out, you're going to turn into a werewolf. and because I remember watching it a few times and thinking, okay, he turned into a werewolf that evening, and then the next evening, and then the next evening after that, and then I watched it later. I'm like, oh, they never actually said beware the full moon. They just said beware the moon. And that's kind of messing with the traditional werewolf folklore, because John Landis wanted to. I mean, it's, and does it fly in the face of what we know about werewolf lore? Well, yeah, but also, Hollywood has yet to decide if vampires can have sex or not.
I suppose that is very, very true. I always assumed it was sort of like a phase of the full moon, because otherwise, like, how would a werewolf ever really be able to survive? You would just be a transient. You wouldn't be able to have any kind of normal life to keep you safe during the day. You would just be this feral beast out in the woods waiting for night to come, because there's no way you could live a real life where you're like, oh, I can't do anything tonight. You can't ever do anything ever at night. I know.
How would a werewolf manage in like quarantine?
Oh boy, that's one of those things. You got to have a basement with some chains, I guess.
But yeah, I mean, even the best horror movies, there's a little bit of, just go with me on this. It may not make a little sense. It may not make a lot of sense to you if you think too much about it, but just relax. Just go with it. Go with it.
Gena, we just made a movie. What is a werewolf gonna do during quarantine?
Oh shit.
Holy fuck, Gena. Quick. This podcast is copywritten. I'm mailing it to Congress or the Writers Guild or something. I don't know.
We're gonna print this. We're gonna print this episode out and mail it to ourselves.
That's right. Putting it in the Library of Congress, where all our episodes end up. I'm pretty sure.
American treasures all.
Yes. So all right. So back onto A Nightmare on Elm Street. So we've kind of established that we tend towards the early ones with a splash of later.
Yeah.
But isn't this the way of franchises, with the exception of Mission Impossible, where Mission Impossible only seems to be getting better as it goes? Like they discovered what a Mission Impossible movie is 3 to 4 movies deep, whereas Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street they have that core idea that's so good, and then upon repeat, you begin messing with it too much to make it somewhat different and end up fucking it up.
Right. I think of it as particularly with a Nightmare on Elm Street because, you know, we talked about this off recording where your heart tends to lie more with Friday the 13th and mine tends to lie more with Nightmare on Elm Street. And because with me with the Nightmare on Elm Street, the first one certainly was the first in the slasher genre. Well, other than the original Halloween to really scare me. And I think it was because at the time, and I still do, I struggled a lot with insomnia and having a lot of bad dreams and you know, so I was ripe for a dream demon to come and, you know, and harass me. So, but
it happens, yeah.
But like the Friday the 13th movies, they're gory, they're entertaining. I never found them scary. Like not even when I was a kid watching Friday the 13th. I found them effective, but I never really was scared that like Jason Voorhees was waiting outside my bedroom window. It never really got to me in the way it was supposed to be. I thought that they were fun. Yeah. But, you know, certainly with the first Nightmare on Elm Street, I watched I watched it late at night. I was maybe 16. I'm like, well, this was a mistake. You know, like, I should not have done this.
Yeah.
But you were saying about how they start out good and then I think of it like when someone gets a classic car. And it, you know, it's fine the way it is. It's a beautiful car. Has a I don't know cars, whatever horsepower. It's got a nice shiny red paint job.
You put gasoline in it, and then in the elves in the engine hum.
It's got it's literally got. I've seen Looney Tunes. It's got literal horses going inside the engine. They have
sex, and then that propels the car forward. No. I get how it works. I've seen the Flintstones.
Exactly, but you just keep tinkering with it, and then eventually you've got a car that looks like Pee Wee Herman's bicycle, and it's just like, okay, now you've done too much, and I can't see the original underneath it, and I feel certainly by God, Jesus! My brain is melting here. The one with the baby,
Dream Child,
yes. It just seems so far removed from the original Nightmare on Elm Street that, you know, all they could have done was change his makeup, and it could have been an entirely different concept.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I think they twist it the right directions with 2 and 3 for me. I know some people still have a weird.
Revisiting the second one for me was a revelation. It is a genuinely good movie.
It is. I really like it, and I will grant you, as I said at the time, part of it is having been the first Nightmare that I saw. So there's always going to be that affinity for the first thing that you attached yourself to. But I think there's genuine thrill and there's a scary element to it. And it's just got an idea that may not be as potent as Craven's original, but that fear of sexuality or the fear of being intimate with anyone, and that unknown component and hormones taking over your body. There is something to that makes it vital, that makes it pop off the page. Conversely, there's something to the third one of taking the idea of parents just don't understand to the nth degree of the parents don't care that you live or die because they figure you'll live. They did. And taking that to an nth degree is as visceral. Again, not for me as visceral as the first one. It's certainly more popcorn, and I think that's perfectly okay. There's a lot to love in that movie, Craig Wasson notwithstanding. And so that works. And then everything else, then they don't ever find the idea that turns the corner to the same degree as 1 or 2 or 3.
Right, because they're too busy. Because I think a lot of this had to do with, and we've trod upon this ground many times already, is that Freddy Krueger became a pop culture icon.
Yeah.
So in a way that Jason never did, because Jason didn't talk. So he couldn't, he didn't really have a face. I mean, occasionally he did, but it always looked different. He was clearly a monster. But I think that they, how do we keep, the audience both kind of on Freddy's side and also on the hero side, which is a very complicated line to balance on. I think a recent example for me would be, for a show that does that well, would be Hannibal, in which you were clearly very vested in Hannibal Lecter as a character, in a way that maybe you shouldn't be, but it's a credit to, and I think that's been true for that character for a long time. It's just, it's a very well written, well played, Anthony Hopkins and Red Dragon aside, because boy, he was stinkeroo in that. I don't know what happened. You want to talk phoning it in a performance, but and then you're also invested in Will Graham. And they're adversaries who maybe want to fuck each other. And that's a fascinating element, and it's an element that unfortunately a lot of TV shows and movies don't do very well. I think another example would be Killing Eve, where both hero and villain are equally fascinating and worthy of the audience's interest and attention.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think this is where Jason either benefits from or suffers from. And he is someone you can put any idea or thought into because he does not speak. He does not communicate. But he's still more expressive than a Michael Myers, let's say.
Right. But the issue with that is, because again, with who was the audience supposed to be rooting for here, really is a serious problem in Freddy versus Jason.
Yes. Where
now they're making Jason kind of weirdly sympathetic. And like, this poor disabled child is being tormented by this dream demon. And it's like, yeah, but Jason is still definitely killing people.
Yeah.
So I don't know why you're trying to make it seem like, yeah, but Freddy's even worse. They're both pretty bad.
Yeah. mean, it's
like,
debatable.
Is the audience supposed to be happy that, spoiler, Jason wins in the end? Like what is your takeaway? I mean, at least with King Kong versus Godzilla, which obviously this was supposed to be a evocative of. They've been portrayed as both villain and hero in various movies. So you could choose a side and not be wrong. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yes.
Whereas in Freddy versus Jason, it's like, okay, do I root for the child killer? Or do I root for, technically speaking, Jason did not kill any children.
Yeah. Young adult killer.
You score 1 point for Jason over Freddy Krueger. He never killed any children.
Yeah. I suppose at least Jason, Manhattan notwithstanding, is or anything past 8, he was a localized threat, right?
Right.
Because the death curse is very Crystal Lake based. So long as you're not there, it's a YP, not an MP. But after that sort of gets skirted off to the side. We don't ever need to worry about that again because the script requires that Jason be more mobile. And so he can just fucking go anywhere he damn well pleases, so long as someone whispers in his ear, you need to get out of Ohio, or you need to come to Ohio. There's just a sort of a railway train that just goes from northern New Jersey to Ohio, and he, like a hobo, bindle in tow, gets on that train whenever he needs. What the fuck are we talking about? I don't even remember. But we were talking about which one we root for. So I think Freddy becomes more and more overexposed because he, unlike Jason, can speak for himself. And as a result, what he says has bigger impact. And then you're constantly feeding things into his mouth. Now, not only is he the main character of a horror movie, he hosts a horror anthology, and he's a toy, and he has a 800 number that you could call, or an 866 number, or whatever the fuck that was, and a 900 number. So he's talking way too fucking much, and that ultimately, I think, is, if you have to focus all your energy on making sure that Freddy comes off at the maximum Freddy, everything else is going to get, it's going to roll underneath the bus.
Yeah, I think certainly after part 3, it really kind of starts to deflate. Not so much deflate, just it changes course. Yeah. And not in a good way, I don't think.
Yeah. So I think this brings us down to the point, which we spoke a bit, off pod, but we might as well end here. And that is, I tend to go Friday the 13th. You tend to go A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yes.
How do we decide between these two? Because only one can live, right? We have to take all the copies of A Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th and burn them in a pyre in the town square. That was the deal we made. We had to
send viruses to every streaming service that yes. carries them currently, and make sure to delete all of them.
We should be the ultimate arbiters of the decision between these two things, because it's the only thing we're qualified for after the last 4 years
exactly.
of watching all these movies in slow motion and taking notes.
Our opinion is the only opinions that matter here. And I will say that my best gauge for which one is actually better is, we recorded the last episode of Freddy vs. Jason, thus concluding the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. And we did not sound nearly as exhausted as we did at the end of Jason X. Now, I didn't love Freddy vs. Jason. I thought it was okay. Uh-huh. It had some good, I really liked the scene with the brother in the bathtub full of blood.
Oh yeah, that's great.
I think the whole movie had maintained that sense of just overall creepiness and malevolence. I would have liked it a lot better. But again, like a lot of the later movies in the Nightmare series, they really had a problem with tone.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like, oh, thank God we're done talking about these fucking movies. I mean, okay, and I didn't like, as is well known if you listen to it already, none of us liked the Nightmare remake.
No.
But I don't consider that a part of the overall franchise. That's an outlier. It's terrible. Nobody should watch it. But yeah, I have since rewatched one Friday the 13th movie. We participated in a commentary track on part 7. That is the only one that I have revisited since we concluded Friday the 13th, and I will likely watch part 3 again because I'm going to be writing about it. But if you were to tell me you can never watch these movies again, I'd be like, you know what, I'd probably be all right with that. But I think I would continue to appreciate certainly the first 3 Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I can see myself watching those again, and I can see myself pointing to them as, this is seminal horror here that you should be watching.
Yeah.
Friday the 13th is like, the first one, okay. Fourth one, definitely. Everybody should watch. Yeah. If you had to pick, if you haven't seen any of them, watch the fourth one. You don't need any backstory. There's nothing. It's you go in a clean slate. It doesn't matter. It's a genuinely well-made, entertaining movie. Again, I don't think it's scary. Your mileage may vary, but it's very entertaining. Mm-hmm. But after that point, part 6 aside, which kind of got a little jolt of juice in it and was fun. It was diminishing returns as we kept going.
I think some of it is the content, and you have an obvious preference, and that's I can't tell you what to like or love or what to hate. That would be crazy. It'd be like telling you you're not in love with your significant other based on my outside observations. But I will say part of the thing about Friday the 13th being more drudgery, it had to do with the process of how we do the show, because fewer people die in Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and therefore they require fewer episodes. Whereas in Friday the 13th, it is a volume business. And so just getting through 3 required, I believe, 5 episodes. And from that moment on, we averaged between 5 or 6 episodes on all of these movies, just simply because there were so many people and weirdness, I might add, to talk about. And A Nightmare on Elm Street certainly has plenty of weirdness, but it just doesn't have the volume of characters that pass away in glorious ways. So that has some of the thing to it, right? And we learned how to take breaks. We trudged through a lot of Friday the 13th unabated with nothing in between, just back to back to back to back to back to back. And that must have led to
that's a good point. You know, it was just sheer exhaustion, I think, made it a harder task than it probably actually was.
Yes. Because once again, we designed this podcast to torture each other and have agreed to do it continually now for nearly 4 years. As of this recording, I think we have recorded for 4 years. We just didn't release a first episode.
And we've got at least June. Another year's worth of episodes planned out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, we've discussed this back and forth, but I think from now on, we're going to free ourselves from the yoke of a specific franchise to do every entry of that franchise.
We get asked a lot if we're going to do Halloween, and I may have mentioned this before, but yes and no. Yeah. I think everything that could possibly be said about how the first Halloween has been said. I even think everything that could possibly be said about Season of the Witch could be said.
Agreed.
I think the two could be talked about. I can talk for hours about the one with Paul Rudd, and not because Paul Rudd is in it, because he is terrible in that movie. And I love Paul Rudd, but he is terrible in that Curse of Michael Myers. It definitely. I mean, I don't have any interest in talking about the ones where Jamie Lee Curtis comes back because they're dumb and they're boring. But definitely that run of 4, 5, 6. I'm down with that. It's more a what could we have, fresh and interesting takes could we bring to it? 2, I think, gets ignored a lot. I don't mean to say it's a an underappreciated gem. I think it's appreciated exactly as much as it needs to be. I just think that it's kind of left out of the conversation, and there's some interesting aspects about it. Like the really stupid twist that they're brother and sister, which thank God, and they dropped that for the reboot. As much as I, in retrospect, thought the reboot was okay, not great, okay, but we're not likely to do all the way from 1 to however many there were, like 9.
Yeah,
because they've been, a lot of them have been run over, and then there's some interesting outliers, like again, Curse of Michael Myers, because what in the fuck.
Yeah, I would like to dedicate ourselves to at least doing 4, 5, and 6, because I would like to see what that run was before it sort of rebooted itself into something else. I wouldn't mind taking a revisit into not H2O, because I think that's professionally made, but that next one where there's a kung fu fight in the middle of it. And
yes,
Starbuck
okay, yeah, that
it.
one. Is that the one with the that's supposed to be like their own like Fear Factor or something like that?
Yes, they're an internet show.
And again, that's a very late 90s, early 2000s movie, as was Freddy versus Jason and the Nightmare on the Friday 13th reboot. It feels very much of its time.
I think that is worthy of our kind of examination.
Yeah, all right, I'll agree with that.
There's some serious weirdness there that can be unpacked. And then I think we're fine.
Yeah.
I think we're okay.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen the first Rob Zombie Halloween, and I was like, yeah, I'm good. I got it.
And, there are people who dig on Zombie. I like some of his other films.
I liked House of 1,000 Corpses, and then I watched the next one, and I was like, yeah, I'm good. I got the idea.
And the thing is, like, he's not making movies for everybody. And I think that's the lane that he does the best in. The movie that's not for everyone. And to be honest with you, that's where he should be, because if he makes one that's just an out and out across the board crowd pleaser, and even the films that like Devil's Rejects that really cross over are still not for everyone. And that's good. Believe me, there's too much for everyone in this world. So that just about does it for Friday the 13th and A Nightmare on Elm Street, with the exception of our concluding episode, which will drop next Friday. We have a wonderful guest, Jordan Crucchiola, and we get into the meat of that ending. There's a lot to discuss. And then after that, we've got a lot of fun stuff that's already in the can that's going to come your way. Great guests, fun movies, slightly different. You know, we're mixing it up where we're grabbing movies from. I didn't expect, Dr. Giggles to be as good as it was. That was an absolute shock to me.
That was a surprise delight in a dark time.
It truly was. Go out and watch Dr. Giggles, everybody. And of 10 to midnight will come up after that with Eric Siska. And then after that, I think we're going to have we did a fundraiser in honor of Women in Horror Month. It was an official fundraiser. It was in celebration of that time for Planned Parenthood. And we had a winner. She was our only entrance person from Facebook, but her name came out of the hat, and she asked us to talk about Bride of Chucky, and I could not have said yes faster enough.
Oh yeah, you said, oh, she's suggesting Bride of Chucky and then like another movie, and my excitement in talking about Bride of Chucky was so intense. I don't actually remember the other movie she gave us as a selection.
It doesn't matter.
I was like, oh, clearly it's got to be Bride of Chucky, and you were you were like, I agree, in all caps.
So I'm really looking forward to giving that the kill by kill treatment. Of course, before we go, we should thank the people that are supporting us on Patreon in these troubled times. It's very helpful to keep this show absolutely free to you. And so, Gena, who are the people who have joined the flock on Patreon?
Well, actually, the remarkable thing is we actually have two kinds of patrons. We have the new patrons, which are Brandon Allen, Jason Evans, Zach Richer, and then we have the folks who actually have increased their patronage, which, considering current circumstances, I am humbled and surprised and deeply, deeply grateful. I mean, I should clarify, we're fine. We're both, Patrick and I are both, still blessed to be able to hold on to our jobs. But we're, these do keep the old podcast lights on. So any increase is always welcome, but right now it's particularly, a remarkable thing. And so I want to especially thank Yuha and Karen Corday, both of whom increased their patron donations. So thank you. Thank you so much. There's not a lot to be happy about right now, but every time I get that little email from Patreon that says you have a new patron, and I'm always like, yay! And then I see name change their donation. I'm like, oh, but I open it up, it's like, oh, they increased it, yay!
We thank you a lot, because that also means that I can do a bunch of research, so I don't point it all on Gena about like finding movies that are going to be in the bullpen. We're able to sort of put our tentacles out and see what we want to drag down into our inky depths.
And if you're patron, and honestly, our patrons, if you have a suggestion for a movie, feel free. I mean, we do have on the $10 level an opportunity to choose a movie for us. But if you want to just cast out your net and say, hey, Kill by Kill or Porcelain 72 on Twitter, have you considered this movie? We will at least consider it. we do have a guideline of when we send out our email to the folks that win our bi-monthly drawing, where, try not to, give us something that is notoriously bad or quote unquote controversial, because it's fun to hear us be put through the ringer, but we don't always enjoy it. But yeah, if you hear about a movie you think we'd be into, like Patrick, you've been talking about that Australian movie, which I had not heard of. I would love to say, if I wish I could remember what it's called.
Next of Kin. For some reason I was thinking New Kid in Town, and I was like, no, that's not what it's called. Although I have watched New Kids.
I have seen New Kids, and James Spader and his white blonde hair.
Oh my God. That is a movie with a not capital M. It's just a movie.
That is a motion picture.
I mean, it was certainly released into theaters, and
it was projected onto the screen. But we have access to Shudder, we have access to Amazon, various HBO's goes and all. So we're down with suggestions. We're and if we've seen it or are not a fan, we'll be polite about it.
Absolutely. And we'll certainly go, oh, this may be the reason why we might not. We'll try to explain why it might not fit the criteria. But until next week, thank you everyone for supporting us. Until next time, when the body count finally comes to an end, before, like the Phoenix, it is born again. For myself and for Gena. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.